All right, welcome everyone. This is now session 8. So tonight we're going to have a look at the dimensioning, which will essentially finish off the floor plan. So last week we were working on the text for the floor plan itself. That was one of the last things we were doing. So if you can just log in to Learn, and then just go to, again, part 2, documentation. So we're working from this PDF here, which is dimensions and text. So the text itself is now in place. You've done your text, you've done all your tagging, you've put your rooms in, you've updated your room names and so forth, put in your room separation lines. So your text is now done. So we're going to look at dimensioning next. And from there, we'll actually just reveal the crop around the floor plan itself, and then adjust the crop region in so that essentially this view is now ready for, or will be ready for it to go onto a sheet when the time comes. So having a look at our progress so far, so text in place. Now it is important that I guess once you put all your text in place, that you do a spell check. Okay, so just run through and do a spell check. So function F7. So I think I talked about changing the dictionary last week, didn't I, to British English. So just before you do your spell check, just make that adjustment. If you know a word is actually correct and it's highlighting it up here, then you can just ignore it. That's fine. Okay, so there, spell check complete. So it hasn't picked up any other spelling mistakes apart from things it doesn't recognise that are correct. Okay. So it doesn't matter which view you're placing text in. The very last thing you'll do in that view is actually run a spell check, okay, to make sure that everything is okay. All right, so that's done. So just quickly, turn on your thick lines, and I guess just make sure that you cannot see your separation lines. Okay, so no brown dashed lines are visible, so turn off your separation lines. I don't know if you have, but just note the cross lines here inside the hot water service. So if you haven't drawn those in, they're just thin detail lines. So just draw them on the diagonal. They're a thin detail line. Okay. So just draw them in if you haven't already. Now with the dimensioning, again, you're going to refer back to this sheet here. And I'm just going to actually sort of just run through, I guess, the dimensioning here at the top, the northern end of the building. So here, all dimensions for the floor plan, that is, use the standard 2mm diagonal with tick as the dimension type. So if you can appreciate that with our linear dimensions, if you are working with dimension types, from the annotate tab, see the dimensions drop down here. So if you're actually modifying or creating additional dimension types, you can do it directly from here. So we're talking about linear dimension types. Although they're placed using this option here, which is aligned, okay, but they're known as linear dimension types. In this particular project, there are 3, and you'll actually be using 2 of them. This one here, the diagonal with tick and the diagonal with arrow. Okay, so for the floor plan, it'll be this one here. Please note, do not use this one at all. Okay, do not use this top one for any dimensioning within the project. And I guess if we have a look at this one here, the diagonal with arrow, I did talk about, I guess, the settings that I've changed within the dimension style. That's we talked about that last week. Now, just one of the settings to note is this one here, which is dimension line snap distance, okay, which is currently set to 8mm. Does anyone know what that setting does or how it affects the dimensions? Yes, it's the actual physical spacing between each dimension line, okay, and that one I'll talk about a fair bit. That's quite important, that one. So note 8mm. You don't need to remember what the spacing is, but you need to actually, once you physically place the dimensions, you actually need to space them correctly using some of the little tools that Revit provides. So dimension line snap distance. All right. So we're going to place the dimensions using the aligned tool, shortcut DI. Note on the options bar here, always have this set to wall faces, and here, individual reference. So when we're placing dimensions, for instance, of course, if you're going to place a dimension from one side of the building to the other, you move towards the outside wall face, and when it pre-selects, you actually click to start the dimension. Now, you've all done dimensioning in Revit before, haven't you? Yeah. Okay, so this is not new. What I want to do is actually try and sort of just cover some of the aspects of dimensioning that you may not know about. Okay. But when you are dimensioning walls, it is important that you actually note the little pop-up there that says, that actually tells you that you're actually pre-selecting a wall. So if you're dimensioning walls, make sure you are clicking on walls. I know that sounds silly, but you might have a floor that connects to a wall, and you might actually be dimensioning the floor, not the wall. Okay, so make sure you are getting the wall line. So essentially this first dimension is should read 6700. Now I guess the placement of the first dimension out from the building is important, and it's important that it doesn't run through any text or anything else like that. So it's just sort of up and away, or up and out of the way. So if I hit the escape key now a couple of times, I've actually dropped out of the dimension tool or command completely, which does sometimes happen. If you actually place one dimension and you accidentally sort of hit the escape key or do something else, it'll actually drop you out of the dimension tool. Now, what I don't want you to do is basically start the dimension tool again and then start from here, for instance, and then go to here, which is the next required dimension. What I don't want you to do is actually have 2 separate dimensions like that. Okay, I need to make that quite clear. All right, when you're actually running a series of dimensions along the same line, they must all be connected. Okay, very important. So if you stop, how do you restart? Does anyone know? Sorry? Enter will start the dimension tool again, but that's not what I'm meaning. How can you continue a dimension that you've already placed? Anyone know?
Click on it.
Click on it. Edit witness line. Are you all aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, so that will continue that dimension. So if you do stop, that's how you restart. All right. So if we're running across this first dimension or this first set, that's picking up on the down here, for instance, where I am down here, either side of the sliding door. It then goes up to here, or goes to here, this side of the wall face. Okay, and then the other side of, so it's this side of the window, the other side here of, so the left-hand side of this window, so that's giving 2466, and then we go to this side of the building here, and stop. So to actually finish, so if you're not intending to place any more or to dimension anything more along that line, then you actually just click out here to finish. Now, if you find that some of these dimension amounts are not correct, it means that you probably have inadvertently clicked on the wrong thing. So, and you may have missed, or you may have missed a dimension completely. So I'm just going to delete that dimension, and I'm going to start it again. And I'm going to purposely just make a few mistakes here. Okay, so there's my dimension set. Now I've made a few mistakes there. Okay, now the thing is that, and I've missed clicking on a few items on the actual floor plan itself, the building itself. Now the thing is that you don't, if you do this, if you actually sort of run a series of dimensions and you have a look and some of the numbers are not correct and you think, okay, well they're not correct, why? And usually it's because you've missed clicking on something, or you might have actually in dimensioning a window or a door, you might have clicked on the wrong part of the window or door, the frame itself. So the thing is that and if you've missed a dimension completely, what you can do is, so for instance here, if you select the dimension itself and go up to edit witness line, what you can do to add a dimension in, you can actually, in this case, if I click down here, okay, the side of this window here, which is one I've missed. So if I click here, what it does, it adds that dimension back in again. Okay, so that wasn't there before, but in clicking down here, it actually puts the dimension in, this one here. Now the other one that I've missed is this one here, this wall dimension down here, this one here. So again, if I click down here, it puts the 1090 on that other side. Okay. Now I've got a difference here. I've got 922 and I've got 2440 here. This one should be 822 and this one should be 2480. So in this case, the dimensions are all there, but they're just reading incorrectly. So if I click out here to finish what I'm doing currently, what you can also do is, so this one is reading correctly, 847, 2440 is not correct, that's 2480. So with this one here, what we can do, so there's obviously something wrong with this witness line here. So what you can do is click on the dimension itself and then click the witness line and you can move it, okay, with that middle dot. So essentially what you do is just move it to another spot. So what I've done is I've clicked on this side of the sliding door here incorrectly. So what I'm doing is I'm going to drag it now to this side, and hopefully that will fix the issue. So I've now got 882 and 2480. So you see what I'm getting at? So it's just, you know, differences in values can just be a minor thing, okay? But the thing is, overall, each of these values must be exact to the millimetre, all right, to my example, okay? If they're out slightly by one or 2 mil, that's not acceptable, so they have to be exact, and there's no reason why they wouldn't be, okay, if you're clicking on the correct items. So, so I've just basically demonstrated how to add to a dimension, how to continue a dimension, how to add dimensions back in again once you've actually created the set or the line of dimensions, and how to actually go back in and correct them, how to move a witness line from one position to another. Okay, so these are all things you can do after you've placed the dimension line itself. So we then go over the top of this one and place a second set.
I have a question.
Yeah, so the question was, I guess, if you are putting in dimensions, so for instance, if I put in my second set, which is dimensioning from here to here, now just, and I'll answer the question as well. Now the thing is that when you put your second, when you're working on your second set and your subsequent sets of dimensions, I guess notice that when I hit a certain spot, you can see the blue dashed line there. Can you see the blue dashed line coming off the left of that dimension out here? See it there? See it there? Okay. Now that's the dimension line snap distance. Okay. And it's important that you don't place the dimension until you actually see that blue dashed line. And when it appears, and you actually feel your dimension just slightly sticking at that point, you'll feel it gripping. And that's when you left click to place your dimension. Now you can keep going. If you have to create a series of dimensions, you just keep going. But at the end of your dimensions, you'll see a blue dashed line coming out of the left or the right. And when you see that blue dashed line, that's when you click to place that dimension set. Okay. Now the thing is that again, if you inadvertently stop there, but your intention was to actually continue that with other dimensions, you must select that dimension and then click Edit Witness Line and then keep going. Okay. The thing is that if you create individual dimensions along that line, for one, it's doubtful whether they'll all line up perfectly. They probably will, but they all remain separate. And the thing is that if you're going to move that dimension line up or down, if you have to adjust it up or down, it makes it incredibly difficult to actually do it if every one of them is separate. Okay, it makes sense to actually keep them together so that when you nudge that up and down, or however you move it, that the whole line goes up and down together without having to worry about individual dimensions. Does that answer your questions in that respect? Yeah. Okay. Now the thing is that with the first dimension of the second row, of course, select it and hit Edit Witness Line, and then...
Russell, what is it dimensioning the 700? Can you please tell me?
The 700 is dimensioning from here to here. Okay. Yep. Now, when I select that and hit Edit Witness Line, we then go to the other side of this wall here. So that gives us 90 mil. And we then go to this wall here and the other side here. And then to the 240 wall here. And continuing on, we dimension this wall thickness here. So either side of that wall at 156. And then we go to the other side of this other side here, this side wall here, inside and outside, and stop. Okay, so checking all of those, they look good. But as I say, the thing is that if I move that up, if I have to move it up like that, I just have to click it once and then drag it up. Now, if I move that back, okay, if I move that back, you'll get to a certain point where you'll get a blue dashed line coming out of the end of it. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. Yeah. Just there. Can you see the blue dashed line coming out from the left of it? Okay. So that's now giving me guidance and helping me to get the correct snap distance. So I let it go there, and the distance between that dimension line and that dimension line is exactly 8 millimeters. Okay. Now, in reality, I guess at a scale of 1 to 100, it would be 800. So it's 8 by the current view scale. Because if I was to draw a detail line, say from here down to here, it would be 800. Okay? But at 1 to 100, when this prints at 1 to 100, that distance is actually 8 mil. Okay? So it's 800 divided by the scale, which is 100, which gives us 8 millimeters plotted. Okay. Now, I'll just quickly put these other two dimensions above that, because there's a few other things I just want to talk about. So again, and with your dimensioning, like anything else, if you select a previous dimension and go up here to create similar, or just type CS, That puts you into the dimension tool again, using the same dimension type. So what have we got here? So this one is going from this wall here down to the side of the building here, the new part here. So that's your 4209, and then going across to the other side of the extension here gives you 4646. So again, I move up. When I get that dashed line, there it is there. I can then left click to place the dimensions. And finally, this dimensioning from this wall again. This time we're actually dimensioning the deck to there. 4400. Now the thing is that if you inadvertently click on the wrong thing as you're dimensioning, okay, let's say that wasn't what I wanted to dimension. If you click on it again, it removes it. Okay, so if I click there and I find, oh, whoops, that's the wrong thing that I wanted to pick. If you click on it again, it just removes it. Okay, so picking there, if I happen to pick there and whoops, I didn't want to, okay, pick on it again and it removes just that one dimension. Okay, and then go across to this side here and place and up to here. So again, look for your blue dashed line and then left click to place. Now, just looking at these dimensions, what you are also required to do is with these smaller dimensions like this, you are required to lift them up slightly. Okay, so note the gap from the bottom of this witness line to the top of this witness line. Okay, now what you do is you click directly on the number. Okay, watching everyone? Click directly on the number and using this this drag bubble here, drag text, you move the text directly up so it sits between this witness line and this witness line. Okay, now note the curved line, okay, that needs to be removed, and that's known as a leader. Okay, so when you're dragging your text up, you untick leader and it removes that curved line. Okay, so note the position of the text. So once you've done that one, you then move across to the next one. Now when you do the next one, two things will happen. There'll be no leader, and it will actually sort of, you'll take it up and you'll actually feel it sticking because it will actually align itself with this first one. So once you put the first one up, the second one will actually sort of lock in and stick to that same position, as will the third and fourth and so forth. You actually feel it sticking. See that sticking there? Okay, and then the 90s as well. So it just locks in there. And finally this one here. Okay, so it's important that all of these, the ones you're lifting up, are all on the same line. Okay, so that will need to be done for all dimension sets. So once you place your dimensions, go back over and adjust the smaller ones to lift them up, or they might. So on the western and eastern side, you'll actually move them either left or right. Now, just finally, and I guess if you are going to, well, there's a couple of things. If you're going to move your dimensions, if they're actually too close to something else, then drag a crossing window over them. Okay, drag a crossing window like that, and because they're all together, okay, they're not separate. Oh no, they are separate lines. but each dimension is not separate. You can then use your arrow keys to move them up or down as required. Okay, so don't have them there over the text. Okay, that's still too close. Okay, move them up well out of the way. Not too far out, but with each of your dimension sets, try and get the distance from the building itself. Try and get that as consistent as possible. Now, just finally, in the example here, note that there are some dimensions with text above them. So in this case, the word deck on each of these. Over here, you've got the word existing. Down here, you've got deck, new construction, and existing. Okay, so that text is actually placed as part of the dimension text. Okay, so it's not separate text. It's not text. It's actually part of the dimension text itself. The way that you add text like that is to actually click directly on the number. So left click and left click. Try that again. Left click, and this is called dimension text. Okay, everyone noting this? All right. So if you want to place, include text above or to the right or to the left or below, you actually put the text in here, in these boxes here. Okay, above, below, prefix, suffix. So here we put the word deck in capitals, and it pops it up there. So it includes it as part of the dimension. All right, so in all cases, that's what you'll be doing if there is a text requirement. Okay, so again, click and click. Pop in the word deck. Okay, so that's all I needed to go through with the dimensioning. I can't think of anything else with dimensions to sort of talk about. So that's all. That's the basics essentially. So I'll just leave you now to just work your way around the floor plan and add all of the other required dimensions.
Is it okay to repeat the dimensions, because one of the dimensions is being repeated in the third dimension line? So that's fine because we're already getting the dimension 4209.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Those two are repeated, so that's no problem. Yeah. Normally you wouldn't repeat them, but that's okay. Now the thing is that if you wanted to remove a dimension, this is something else. Yeah. So if you actually wanted to remove a dimension here, what you can do, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Right, no one interested? Okay, this is for your benefit. All right. If you wanted to remove a dimension from a line of dimensions, if you actually mouse over the dimension you want to remove and hit the tab key and left click on it, you can delete it. Okay, so that's another little trick that you can use when you're editing your dimensions. And I'll just Control Z that, bring it back. Same here, pre-select, tab, click, delete. Okay, I'll bring that back. Now the other way that you can do that, of course, is select and edit witness line, and if you click on the object that you clicked on to produce the dimension, here for instance, it removes it. Okay, so click to add, click to remove. So there's a couple of ways you can actually remove dimensions like that. But the way that I showed you just then will allow you to actually remove dimensions inside a set of dimensions. Okay, so you can actually remove interim dimensions. So this becomes separate. Okay, if you need to do that. So it might have taken you a fair while to actually produce a long line of dimensions, so that's a very quick way of taking one or two out if you need to. Okay, so I'll just Control Z that. But again, it is important that where you can, that you keep these dimensions as one string. Okay. All right. As I say, I'll let you just work your way around and place the other dimensions. So, as you're placing the dimensions, just make sure that you keep an eye on the dimension amounts and that they are correct and they do match my example. Okay, I think most of you by now have almost finished your dimensions. I guess just for clarification, this set of 3 dimensions here, if I move that one across, can you see what that's dimensioning there? So it's just dimensioning to the hanging space here, which is the 610, then to the end of the wall here, which is the 625, and then from here, actually that's 555, isn't it? So that one there is actually not correct. So if I click on that one and then just drag the witness line up to here, I can then just adjust that one, so that's now correct. So that's, again, if you're going over and just checking your dimensions and you find that one of them is not correct, then it's obviously could be something as simple as just dragging the witness line, just moving it from one position to another. So I'll move that one back out to where it was. There. Just on this side, I think the lower dimensions are all fairly straightforward. The dimensions on this side, of course, this first set here is picking up on the basically the window position here. Just lock that back in if I can. There. Oops. There. This second set here, if I drag that across, don't know how well you can see that, but it basically it's just picking up on the 240 wall here. It's picking up on this wall here, through here, this one here, this wall through here, this one here, and finally this one down here at 240. Now this one here, that's essentially, if I take that across, so initially it's picking up on the distance from this wall face here across to this wall face here, that's the 3870, and if I take it in a bit further, it's then picking up on this window, which is the 1235, and then this window here at 1395, and that's where it stops. And of course this dimension here is just picking up on the wall thickness here, the wall thickness here, and the wall thickness here. And of course then we've just got our overall dimensions on the outside. Okay, so Yeah, so that's all the dimensioning that's required on the floor plan itself. Now, what you can do when you finish your dimensioning, you can actually just add a north symbol up here on the northwestern corner. So to show you where that goes, if I go back to here to sheets, so this essentially is the finished product, as in the floor plan sheet. So you can see that the floor plan sheet itself will include a north symbol and also a legend. Now the legend itself has already been created within the project, and that will actually be added to the sheet when we put the sheet together. We're not putting sheets together just yet. We're just getting all of our views prepared for sheets. So after we finish the floor plan itself, we'll actually move on to the demolition plan. So that's our next sheet, or our next view that we're going to work on. But for now, if you can just put your north symbol in approximately here in relation to the floor plan itself, and then we'll have a look at actually sort of adjusting the crop region, and the floor plan itself is then ready for a sheet or its sheet. So annotate symbol. So again, annotate symbol. In the type selector, just choose your north symbol, north arrow here, type 1, and just place it about here. Now what we do from here is that if you zoom out far enough, you'll actually see the 4 elevation markers. So if you can appreciate that we don't want to see them, they need to be not removed or deleted, but we need to actually not include them in the view itself. So the way that we do that is in the properties of the view, in all cases you'll need to tick crop view, and in this case crop region visible. Now these two controls here are actually repeated down on the view control bar down here. So we've got crop view and we've got crop region visible here. So hide crop region and crop or not crop the view itself. I prefer using these ones here. They do the same thing. So when you tick crop region visible, you'll see the crop region here. Now this is known as a model crop. Okay, note the solid line around the border, and essentially what we do is we bring it in close to the building itself. Now it won't affect annotation, okay, out here, but if you bring it in and bring it across or take it across the building itself, it does this. So what it does is it crops the model, but it doesn't affect the annotation. Okay, so just be careful with that. Just make sure that you're not actually cropping any part of the model. And I would suggest maybe just bringing it out to about here. So the idea is to sort of, bring it in and make it as small as possible without losing any part of the model.
Do the sections need to be kept in it?
The section heads, the section heads need to be visible, yes. The thing is that the crop region won't affect the section heads.
Oh, so they don't need to be.
No, but they need, so that it won't actually affect those, but they do need to be visible, those section heads. Okay, Okay, so yeah, so you can see where that or how big that crop region is. So that's good. Once you've adjusted it inwards, you're happy with it. You can then untick this box here, which essentially hides the crop region. But note the crop view must always be ticked. Now, if you zoom out like that, if you actually untick crop view, it just takes your view back to what it was. Okay, so this needs to be ticked for the crop to work. Okay, so this is basically just cropping view or not cropping the view. This shows the crop region. Okay, so if you do a zoom extents, a ZE or a ZF, it will come up full screen like that, and of course you won't see your elevation markers. So I guess the thing is from here, with the floor plan, we've now got all the required annotation on the floor plan. Just make sure that your roofs are visible. Make sure that your visual style is set to hidden line. Make sure that your AutoCAD plan is turned off. Okay, so that's done through visibility graphics, imported categories, and the AutoCAD drawing here is actually unticked. That's important. And again, as I said before, if you turn on your thick lines temporarily, just make sure that you cannot see the separation lines. And oh, by the way, with dimensioning, please, with dimensioning, do not, or I'm suggesting that you don't dimension with thick lines turned on. Okay, so if you can appreciate that with thick lines turned on, see how close some of the line work gets. So it's very difficult sometimes. This is where mistakes happen, is that you pick the wrong item to start your dimension or to complete a dimension. So it's important that when you are working in your views that you actually switch back to thin lines. Okay, it's just something that I keep reminding students over and over again, to actually not work with thick lines turned on. Okay, so yeah, so that's now completed our floor plan. So as I say, we're going to move on next to the demolition plan. Okay, we'll have a look at the demolition plan next. Now, if you, in the project browser, if you can actually just, just before we leave the floor plan, just something that I've thought of with the floor plan itself. Just before we leave this, can you, in the properties of the current view, the floor plan, can you scroll down to identity data, down to this here, which is title on sheet. Now across in the cell here, just click into the cell here, and in uppercase characters, just type in floor space plan. Okay, so just title on sheet, floor plan. So floor space plan. So when it comes time to put this view onto the floor plan sheet, the words floor plan will appear in the view title, and essentially whatever we put into this cell here will actually override the actual view name. Okay, so we can actually sort of determine or dictate what we want the view name to be. So it can be different. The title name can be different to the view name. Okay, so that's done. So just open up your demo plan-demo. Just double click on that. So it should look like this at the moment. Now we just have to do a bit of tidying up with the plan itself. So firstly, what I'll get you to do is actually hide by category the section lines. And secondly, as you move over the floor plan itself, see how the actual rooms are highlighting? So that's going to get annoying. So what I'll get you to do is actually, if you can actually highlight, pre-select one of them, and then click to select, and then actually hide the rooms by category as well. Okay. Now thirdly, you'll need to actually make the roof visible. So when I say the roof, just the roof over the existing building. Okay. And you should know how to do that. Okay. I'm getting a lot of blank looks. By now this should be sinking in. You should know how to do these things, okay? So with the roof itself, it's not a case of unhiding a category. It's another way we actually show the roof itself. Okay. Okay, roof visible.
I put it on the FFL, still it came.
So it's the range base level set to FCL.
I put it on FFL, still the roof is visible.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, so it doesn't matter whether you put new FCL or FCL, as long as we can see the roof over the existing building. Okay, now, so that's a bit of preliminary preparation for the view itself. Now, what we're going to do next is just go back to Learn. Okay, just go back to Learn to Part 2 documentation. Now, since starting the class tonight, I've actually switched on, or just a little while ago, I've just switched on this this last section here, which is developing and annotating the demolition plan, which you possibly won't be able to see unless you refresh your screen. So hit the F5 key on your keyboard and refresh your screen so you can see this section. Now, specifically, there's a PDF A3 sheet here, which is demolition plan supplemental information. So if you can open that one up. So what that will give you is essentially the demolition plan presented twice. On the left-hand side here, it's just giving you assistance in adding some, not so much adding detail items, but making them visible. Also, just actually drawing some detail line work. So here, to represent the pergola that's to be demolished, and also here to just draw in some line work, I guess, to indicate this, the section of roof that's being taken out through demolition. and also if you zoom in here, you can see these 90 by 90 posts, which also have to be represented or included as an item to be demolished. Okay, I'll sort of cover this separately, how we actually create these posts. But I guess initially, before we start drawing any new line work, what you'll need to do is just follow the instructions up here and here, and there's an instruction here for the masking region and the text for the access point, and also just here to actually sort of copy these diagonal lines here from the floor plan itself. Now what I suggest you do, so firstly you're actually going to select these items here in the floor plan and change their phase created status to existing. And what that does is it makes them visible in the demolition plan, because you currently can't see them at the moment. Okay, so from here we then copy some text and again copy this masking region plus the text inside it. So what I would suggest is you've possibly got your floor plan tab here as well and the demolition tab, the two views. So what I would suggest you do is actually tile the views and have them side by side. Zoom them up sufficiently so that you can select items in the floor plan, and do the same with the demolition plan. So in the floor plan itself, if you actually select, for instance, the trough and the washing machine and the dryer, again you'll need to change the phase created of each of those to existing, and when you do that they will appear here in the demolition plan. Okay, so that's now visible. Same with the washing machine and the dryer. Now with the text itself, with the text over the trough, the washing machine, the dryer and the access point, for instance, if you, in this view, so if we make this the active view, and if you click directly on the text itself, so click and control click and control click, so I've actually got three pieces of text selected. If you come up here to copy to clipboard, okay, so the shortcut for that is Control C. If you then move into the demolition plan here on the left, so click in here, make this active. If you then go to the clipboard panel and click the bottom of the paste button and select aligned to same place, it will copy the text into this view in exactly the same spots. Okay, so copy, Control C, and then again paste, aligned to same place. And you can do that with the access point here. So just click into this view here, select the masking region, this one here. Okay, copy to clipboard, click into this view here, and paste, align to same place. Okay, and you're doing the same with the text, the AP text here. So select, copy to clipboard or Control C, click into this view here, left click, and then paste and aligned to same place. And again, don't forget to just copy across the diagonal lines here. So you might need to get in quite close. So left click, Control click, copy to clipboard, in this view, paste and align to same place. Okay, so that just demonstrates the ability of Revit to actually copy annotation from one view to another and to put it into exactly the same spot. And essentially that's all we need to take from the floor plan itself. So once you've done that, you can then just close the floor plan and continue working in the plan-demo plan. Alright, so from here, if you can zoom into this section here where the roof is cut out, in through here. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to trace this opening cut with a detail line or a line style that has been created for this purpose. So having a look here, so you can see the outline of this opening cut has been traced with a detail line type or style, and it's called rooflines-demo. Okay. Now the outline of the pergola, and I guess note where the pergola starts, this corner of the roof here. I'll just put that up a bit higher. So it starts here. Okay, it's drawn to the left and then up, and it stops on the edge of the roof here. Now note the width of the pergola and the depth there. Okay, so these dimensions, note these dimensions you'll put in to get the proportions correct, but the dimensions are not required, so don't leave the dimensions there. All right. So again, this line work here is detail lines, and the line style itself is called pergola lines-demo. Okay, so they're two very distinct line styles that have been created for this purpose. Okay, so annotate detail line in the type selector, or sorry, the line style selector. We've got roof lines demo, that one there, and we can simply put that in just by using the rectangle tool and then going from corner to corner. Okay, once you've drawn that in, you can then click detail line again and change the line style to pergola lines-demo. Initially, don't worry about the, I guess, the size of the pergola. Just draw it in approximately. Just make sure that the line here does actually connect to the roof or the roof outline. And as I say, just put in a couple of aligned dimensions. To assist you in getting the correct proportions. And once you've put those dimensions in, don't leave them there, just select them and delete them. Okay, so what I'll get you to do is actually zoom into the corner here, get in nice and close, just in this area here. And we're going to draw, using detail lines, the 90 by 90 post, just one of them. Now that's the post itself is going to be drawn with a line style called Thin Lines Red. Okay, and using the rectangle tool, just anywhere down in the corner here, just draw a rectangle, and after you've drawn it, just select one side, and then just change in this case, I guess the width to 90, and then select either the top or the bottom, and change that dimension to 90 also. So we've got a 90 by 90 post. And using the same line style, just draw a couple of diagonals in. Okay, now so that we can, so that this particular, I guess, shape or cross section is more usable or easier to work with, we're actually going to, I guess, group the lines together into one entity. Okay, so if you can appreciate that we have to, now have to add this cross section. We have to actually move it into the corner of our pergola lines here, and then once it's actually there, we actually then have to array the item 8 times to run it along the longer side of the pergola. So given that it's a series of detail lines at the moment, it makes it very hard to use in separate pieces. So if you if you're doing this for yourself, or if you encounter this, if you draw up something like this that you want to repeat, then select all of the items like so, and then go up to the Create panel and create a group of them. So create a group from those items. So as it says, creates a group of elements for easy reuse. Okay, so click the Create Group. Now for the name of the group, in my instructions here, I've said create a group and name it 90 by 90 post. Okay, so again, in creating that little cross section or timber section, again, draw a 90 by 90 square with diagonal lines. Use the line style thin lines red, which is what we've done, and we're now creating a group and calling it this. And OK. All right, so I'll just deselect that for the moment. So there's our group. So what you'll do from here is select the group and using the move tool, move the group to the corner here. So moving it from here to here. Okay, now once you yeah, you can use the align tool. I just use the move tool and pick an endpoint on the object and then take it to the corner here endpoint. I don't know if the align tool will work. I haven't tried that, but it possibly will. But either way, it just needs to be placed in the corner. So where we are here. So that particular group, that little timber section, needs to actually now be, I guess, replicated along the long side of the pergola. So it goes from corner to corner, and it's then replicated a total of 8 times. So, and again, the best way to do that, or the best way to achieve that, is to actually select it and use the array tool and array the item, in this case, up or along that pergola, which is essentially what I've said here. So using a linear array group to actually produce a total of 8 items. Okay, so again, the array tool, so with it selected, array, now it doesn't really matter, you don't have to actually keep this ticked, group and associate, so that can be unticked. The number of items is 8. Now the option here, move to, that needs to be set to last, because what we're doing is we're actually sort of saying saying to Revit that we actually need to fit 8 items between the start point and the end point. So what it does is it fits those 8 items in between those 2 points, and it then works out the spacing equally. Now the start point, so it's actually prompting me for a move start point down here. So what would be the start point? Top left?
Is that so you can place it in top?
Yeah, so that's correct. So that's the start point there for the array. And the end point is, of course, the opposite corner here. That's the end point there. Okay, so the result is that we have eight of these grouped items, equally spaced along the longer side of the pergola. Now, I guess to finish off the demolition plan, all that's really required now, if we go back to my A3 sheet here, so we've now completed this side of the sheet, that's done. We then move across to this side here. So all that's required now is the text here on the left-hand side, complete with the leader arrows pointing to the relevant parts of the demolition plan. In some cases, the leader arrow will actually be actually inside a sort of an area or a space like this. In other cases, the arrow itself will be just touching, in this case, a wall. So I guess your next task now is to place the text. And what I'd like you to do is to, as closely as possible, replicate the layout that I've got here, the text. So including see how the text is aligned on the left here? Okay, so each piece of text is perfectly aligned on the left. So that's important. Also, just note I guess the evenness in the spacing between each note. So again, try and sort of match what I've done here for consistency. The arrow itself needs to be exactly like I've got here in each case. So some of them are completely straight or horizontal. Some have a two-segment leader. Some are slightly on the angle, which is fine. Okay. So again, just try and match exactly what I've got here with my notes. This particular piece of text here, this one actually has a double leader, so it's just one leader actually with two leaders splitting off here, or two arrows, I should say. So I'll just give you some time now to actually put in those notes. And once the notes are completed, you can then add the north symbol on this side, and essentially that completes the the demolition plan itself. But again, once you've completed the notes and the north symbol, then you go through the same sort of process of turning on the crop region, bringing that in around the building itself, and just renaming the view itself and calling it demolition plan. But I'll cover that. I'll just sort of cover that at the end once everything else is done. So for the moment, just work on placing the text. Now the text itself is all 2mm. Okay, so it's the standard 2mm text style. And again, just once you've put your text in, I guess just put your first piece in roughly about here. When you put in your next piece of text, just make it line up with the first, and then of course the third lines up with the second, and then so forth and so forth. Okay, and again, just don't forget this little piece of text in here, and that will complete the text requirements for the plan itself. Yeah. Okay. So you've put your first piece of text in. You then put your second piece in. So again, with your second piece of text, once you've placed it, just click the little move symbol and move to the left, and when you get the alignment, see the alignment path up to the first piece of text, the blue dashed line. So when that's visible, just release your mouse like that, and that way you know you've got those two pieces of text lined up. Now, with the second note, you are required to put a second arrow on it, or include a second arrow. Now, you'll do that by selecting the text itself, and if you go up here, add right side straight leader. Okay, now if I click that, it adds a second arrow. If I click it again, it adds a third and a fourth and a fifth. Okay, if you want to remove those, you can do this: remove, remove, remove. So what I do here is I drag the arrow up to here where it needs to point, and then drag the middle of the arrow along this one to a vertical position and release it. Okay, so that's how you do it essentially. So you've got to add the leader first and then drag it into position. So again, just make sure that the this part here is actually vertical, so that it's not stepped or on an angle. And again, with the horizontal aspect of your arrow, so this one has some stepping in it. I can sort of see that. So again, that just needs to be selected and brought back to horizontal. Whoops. There. Yeah, so with your arrows, again, just remember, or just note that the arrowhead needs to be almost touching the object it's describing in each case. Okay, and then just continue on with your notes downwards, and again, just make sure that that each note is aligned to the one above it on the left-hand side. And what are you going to do after you've placed all your notes? Spell check. Okay, that's vitally important. So spell check. Okay, so at the end of the process, just run a spell check. So the shortcut for that is just the F7 key on your keyboard. So that's the shortcut, or click here. Okay, so just if you know something is correct, you can just ignore it. So again, it's picked up, I've spelt plumbing incorrectly, so it's giving me an alternative here, change to plumbing. So click the change button. Bathroom's not spelt correctly, so again, change and spell check complete. So from here, as I say, zoom out. Just make your crop region visible. Just make sure you've got crop view ticked. Tick crop region visible. Bring that in. Now note that I think if you actually take that over the detail lines, it will crop them as well. Okay, so note that it's actually cropping the detail lines there. So just adjust that either side and then bring it down over the top. Whoops. And then up to here. Once you've done that, just switch it off, crop region visible, and then just from the annotate tab, just add the north symbol, or north arrow, just over here on the right hand side. Okay, and that essentially completes the demolition plan. So again, just with your text, if you can just follow my examples, try and sort of, I guess, just imitate the number of lines that I've got, then the same sort of words in each line, and also just keep the text reasonably close to the pergola line here, not too close, not too far away. And again, just use my example here as a guide. Okay, so that will conclude tonight's session. So next week we're going to have a look at the site plan. So next week we start preparing and developing the site plan itself. All right. So thanks everyone. If you haven't quite finished your text, I'll get you to finish that off before next week, but I think most of you have, so that's good. So thanks, and we'll see you next week.